name is Sean. I'm here with Carrie. I'm actually in Mexico from the United States. Carrie's up, not there. What's up, Carrie?
Good. I'm in Canada. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
jealous you're in Mexico. I love
yeah.
Mexico.
Long story there, but I'm the host of the Suicide Noted podcast. Carrie's been a guest. It's a pretty simple format. We have conversations with suicide attempt survivors, and now in the last few months, we started to do a live stream in a bunch of places, mostly on YouTube, just to see if there's an audience out there that wants to hear these conversations and talk about different topics. So that's where we're at. And today, last week, a couple of people joined and we were talking about physician-assisted suicide. There was some tech issues, but some of that is still up, and you can watch that if you'd like to. And we're going to continue that conversation. And it's a simple conversation, not simple, really. It's just the idea of it, physician-assisted suicide, meaning that if you want to die, you can get a physician to help you die. As far as I understand, that's not euthanasia. Euthanasia is defined as the person actually, like an animal, where the physician would actually be, for example, injecting you with something. But we're not talking about that. We're simply talking about the conditions in which, or the legality around, or the ethics around a doctor helping you in that process, so that, in part, you don't do it on your own, because that typically comes with some things that are not ideal, that a lot of people are dealing with or facing or navigating all the time, many of which you know nothing about because they're not talking about it, because for obvious reasons, if they do, they're dealt with all kinds of other additional problems, often making it much, much worse. So therein lies one large conundrum. My views, in short, it's a complicated issue or question. I know in some places, including Canada, parts of Europe, that there are things in place for people who are terminally ill, like cancer or other conditions, and they go through a process. I don't know how that works with paying money, and a doctor or qualified whomever can help them end their life so that presumably it's on their terms and they get to say goodbye, and it's safe and it's painless, I assume, and things are done in a way with honor and respect. I think they say dignity is a big word used. That's not an option if that doesn't exist. So my question for you, Carrie, is one, how do you feel about, big broad question, physician-assisted suicide? And then part two to that is, actually part one is how do you feel about it? And then I want to ask a little bit about what it might look like in practice, which I think is the harder part of the question. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm like, my short answer is I'm very pro. In Canada, we call it MAID, medical assistance in dying, I think is the acronym MAID. And because we have healthcare here, it's paid for by our provincial government.
Mm-hmm.
Each province has its own jurisdiction, I believe, on how MAID works. And yeah, and I know two people that have done it. And I'm pro MAID.
Most of people have like a terminal illness, though.
Yes, one was cancer and one was Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm. And so, and I think there are a couple of states that do it here on some level too. And I think there's legislation for some, though it takes a while, moving more in that direction. That might obviously change radically now with current administration. I don't know. Maybe I should have done my homework a little bit more, but it's not really about policy. It's about just these larger questions about how do we feel about it. So the one part is the one part is like, if somebody's going to die, we're all going to die, by the way. But if somebody's going to die in a particular set, terminal, cancer, Alzheimer's, insert other disease, okay, that's one thing. But what we're talking about, at least in context with this podcast or live stream, isn't that. Now, sure, someone could be suicidal that has terminal cancer too, but for the sake of argument, let's just set that aside. but simply say Carrie or whomever wants to die, and whether that's something they've wanted for a day or 25 years, should they be allowed to get help? And I guess it's help through whether it's public sector or private sector, in doing that, so that it is, well, all the things I think almost everybody would want. I don't think anybody I've met, very few, after about 300 conversations, very few would say, yeah, I want to do it. I want it to be a pain. I don't want it to, maybe it doesn't work. I'm okay with that. Maybe I'm in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I've very rarely heard, if ever, I want that.
Yeah.
Whether they say I really want to die or I just want the pain to end or somewhere in between, nobody wants that.
Yeah, there's like a violence kind of like associated with the DIY version.
Yeah, right.
That's really horrible and really, like you say, could have um, unexpected consequences that make life even more unbearable. And that's why I'm so pro MAID, because I just, yeah, I think the inherent sort of violence that goes along with suicide is really awful, really,
Right.
really awful, and really, like, you know, that word, dignified or undignified. It's like very undignified, and it's very
Yeah.
just fraught with controversy in our whole zeitgeist. And so, wouldn't it be
Right.
great if we could take that piece away? It forces people into exile, right? That
Mm-hmm.
have
Yeah.
any ideation, and I think it creates other unnecessary pathologies in a person. Um, you have to become become secretive. You have to become alone, exiled, fearful. Like all of that goes along
Yeah.
with.
And there's ways that are more effective than others, but you've got to get the thing. However you're going to do it, you got to get the thing. Go to the
Mhm,
place, whatever it is. It may not work.
mhm,
I mean, let's be really honest. It could fuck some other people up, and I don't mean just your mom who's going to be upset. Like, getting really graphic here, and you want to jump off of a building. There's people on the ground. I mean,
mhm,
there's just so many things to consider.
mhm.
It working, it not working, what happens if it doesn't work, how does it affect the people, all these things that even cost.
Mhm.
So hello, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Carrie. Hi, Sean.
Hey, we just got started a few minutes ago about the idea of physician assisted suicide, um, pro or con, so to speak. And of course, given this Suicide Noted podcast, we're talking about suicide. By and large, the conversations with suicide attempt survivors, most people that I talk to are for it. There's a whole lot of people outside of this little bubble that'll probably very much not agreeing with that. And that's okay. In
Yeah.
fact, if you happen to be watching this right now or anytime in the future and you want to chime in, I welcome that. Yeah, I'd appreciate if you were civil about it, but whatever, chime in. It's cool. I don't expect you to agree. Um, Either way is fine. Um, so the
My
one,
observation. Oh, sorry.
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say my observation of the people that are against it. What I see is these layers of societal conditioning to what suicide is, and I found that interesting to observe in people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just always some form of fear, right? Whether it's religious conditioning or economic, political, whatever it is. There's these you can see people go into this place of judgment, which is born out of the fear that they have of, and maybe just even the fear of death.
Yeah.
Um, what I've observed is the people that are against MAID are usually just so inherently fearful, um, and I find that kind of sad. Like, to be so afraid of death or so afraid of loss and grief and things like that, I think is a real shortfall of our society overall.
Yeah. And I don't know what the direction in which these live streams are going to go, but it's not necessarily meant to be a debate. But I would love to have people on here just simply see it differently and say, you know what, Carrie, I hear what you're saying, but I see it differently, and that's a good conversation. It's not to be one-sided. It just happens to be because of the nature of the podcast that we generally agree. I'm sure we would disagree on some other things with respect to like how would we put that into practice? So it's one thing if someone has cancer and we know every doctor agrees within 6 months they're going to die. Okay. But like, let's just use me in my 50s and I'm just not doing well and I'm facing bankruptcy and I'm miserable and I'm whatever, right? And I just don't want to live anymore. Now, some people would say, well, this, I'm not, you can do whatever you want, Sean. No one can actually, unless we literally like lock you up, and that does happen, of course. You can do it, but then you're going to deal with all the stuff that we were just talking about, right? So how can we do it, but make it so it's dignified? Well, then that brings in all these other questions, including who decides. Because now you're bringing in somebody else, whether they're a doctor or not, saying, oh, yes, you, but not you. Well, how does that work?
Yeah, because it's so much about money, isn't it? Then that part of the conversation is about.
Or do we get to it like it almost feels like it has to be all or none. Otherwise, I have to convince said person that I'm eligible or I am. Well, why? But then you could easily say, well, but so what? You're just going to have anybody who wants to kill themselves have like just be able to go into an office and kill themselves? That seems pretty extreme. And I would agree with that. Like there should be a certain waiting period and there should be things in place, right? We want to minimize the risk that somebody, if we had a magic way of knowing that they regretted it afterwards, that they don't regret it because they were an extreme whatever that may have actually been somewhat temporary.
I've been following the journey of this guy, and he's in the Netherlands right now. I believe he was born in Ghana and then moved to the UK. And he was diagnosed really young with bipolar. And he's been doing this project on Instagram, which I find really beautiful. He moved to the Netherlands to apply for MAID. I don't know if they call it MAID in the Netherlands, but anyway, you know what I mean. He wanted to apply for it because he's just suffered with bipolar disorder his entire life and has been suicidal like for many, many years. I'm guessing he's probably around 40-ish. And he's a super creative, really sensitive guy, really has struggled with persecution for a variety of reasons. And he is doing this thing where he has dinner with different people along his journey. He just meets people through the internet, like mostly through Instagram. And is kind of like in this holding pattern between moving to the Netherlands and applying for MAID, and then there's a time period where you have to wait until you're eligible. And in the meantime, he's doing this thing where he just like reaches out into the community and has dinner with people and then just videos it, and they talk about like their joy of food and their things going on in their life, and he talks about his struggle with mental health, and it's a really neat thing to follow.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
I should have written down his name, but I'm on my phone right now, so I can't go and look it up.
Well, yeah, let us know when you can.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah. It's really cool because you can see like the way it's like a cross section of the way society looks at suicide. He gets bullied and stuff just mercilessly by so many people in the comments. Wow. But then there's also this level of, there's also like the people that are really loving and really embracing and really taking a lot of joy and comfort from him being so open with his process.
Yeah.
and people just enjoying like his creativity and the food that he posts and the, you know, the politics around the situation and how different countries, like the way the Netherlands is much more open about the topic. And I mean, there's just such a variety of topics that he covers in this
I wonder if he was in Ghana
journey.
doing it, if he would have been like, and I know nothing about Ghana, just would have been like immediately thrown
Shut
into
down.
some dungeon.
I believe it's still illegal in Ghana.
I know. Yeah. I talked to somebody for the podcast a while ago from Malawi. Sub-Saharan African, obviously very different country, but yeah, illegal. It's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, they talk about attempting and not succeeding, like now you're going to jail. I don't know, maybe now you're a felon. I don't know what they call you. You know, now what are the consequences there? Like, oof,
Oh,
Jesus.
no kidding.
Here we just stigmatize you forever and make you pay a lot of money. So I guess everywhere has got their own little fucking. Sarah, what are your thoughts in general on physician-assisted suicide, or not in general?
I mean, physician assisted, again, I think the biggest problem is, you always have to have an authority figure come in and authorize it, yes or no.
Right.
And how do you make that judgment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think personally it should be a personal decision,
Mm-hmm.
and, based on the laws of the country and the morals of the country, it just makes it so muddled, the whole issue.
This is what back in the day what Kevorkian was about, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to create this thing. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like chemicals or a mask, but whatever it was, in his like trailer in Michigan, whatever it was. And I don't know if it was free or there was a modest price for it. And then people would be able to go there. And he's the go-between, but I don't think there was like a checklist. I don't know if there was like, prove to me that you're eligible, prove to me you're miserable enough. I just think it was, you can do this here. And, he was stopped. He was jailed eventually.
Was he American?
Yeah.
And he was jailed? Because I remember Kevorkian, but I don't remember the details of what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember the details either. He got away with it for a while. There was a lot of press. Eventually, because I read about something recently, so I may be wrong here in part, but whatever the way he was getting it was cut off, whether it was the device or one of the chemicals or the gases. But he had bought enough to last for a while. So there was this period of time, as best I understand, where people were still able to. So there were maybe a couple of dozen people, and don't quote me on that, more than one or two, less than 100, that did it through him. And eventually one of the courts somewhere said, what you did is not okay. And he went to jail. And I don't know if he died in jail or not.
I think just the fact that so many people were willing to step up for it to happen through him says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's hundreds more people.
Yeah. I mean, how many? Yeah.
I bet there's a lot of people that are just sort of not so dogmatic about suicide. I think there's a lot more than we realize, but it's just because the narrative around it for so many hundreds of years has been that it's like one of the worst things in the world.
Yeah.
That people just aren't willing to come out and talk about their own thoughts about it. But I think it's probably really high.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like it's one more big kind of secret, and we think about it, but we don't talk about it. And it's like,
Yeah.
so you don't really know how many people
Subject,
are.
yeah.
You don't even have a clue of how many people are I mean, how do you, there are certain ways in which people are asked if you're suicidal, which by the way, that alone is like when you think about the imminent risk, I'm digressing here a little bit, like the imminent risk questions, like, are you thinking about suicide? Like let's break down those words. Like, what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, are you thinking about suicide? What does that mean? Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? Like, I understand often they're really, 48 hours, 72 hours. It was like, well, what if you're like the kind of person who could do it any day, but probably won't? Is that a plan?
Yeah.
You're like, where, and there's limits to words, of course, but I don't even know how for a lot of people they would answer those questions honestly. And then, of course, they know if they do what might happen if they answer them honestly. So we're not even close to knowing the truth.
Every
Exactly.
time I go to the doctor,
you have no idea.
every single time I go to the doctor, I have those questions on the intake form, and I always answer, no, absolutely not. Because I
Yeah,
don't.
because you don't want to be shackled.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So I wonder, I don't know how academic research is done and how they find those people. And then, it's anonymous and then they ask a bunch of questions and maybe they're a little bit more honest because it's just like, yes, I'm suicidal and it's an anonymous name and it's never published. So there's like almost no risk to no risk. So you got to start to get like a sense, but
I mean, what about the Suicide Noted podcast? 200 and something, 5 years of 200 and something interviews.
mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm sure some people aren't. I mean, I'm sure not everybody's fully honest with me. Both ways, by the way, I would imagine. If I had to guess, I would say this once in a while, somebody going on there just to say some stuff, just to be on the podcast. Probably not often because who wants to be associated with that, right? But more likely that they are. And even though they're on the podcast, that they're like, nah, like not quite as much as I'm actually thinking about doing it this week. That, people do say that, of course, but sometimes it's like, because I just think we've been so conditioned and so like to lessen it a little bit. And then if you can't do it at your doctor's, well, then where are you going to do it? I mean, where are you? Like, maybe we need an entirely new industry. It's like, I don't even know the name of it. They're not called doctors. I don't know what they're called, but like they handle this and only this, and it's done in a little different way. But
I think one of the fundamental things underlying all this is the separation that we've put on the difference between physical health and mental health. Because that's not, those two things aren't separate at all.
Right.
But that's deeply entrenched that they're separate.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is such a fundamental point. And I think that speaks to like the system that we call medicine right now is so compartmentalized. There's no nuance between any of these aspects of the conversation. Like, of course, physical health would be tied in with how your emotions present or how your thoughts get processed and things like that. Why do we compartmentalize? It's so that they can sell us drugs, basically, is what it is.
Well, but also like Carrie, like if, cancer and Alzheimer's, like, is provable in my mind. Like you have it, right? Like look. Here's a. I can take you to a machine, a computer, and show that this person has it. 99.99% accuracy. The non-physical depression. Maybe one day we'll get to that point too. I don't know, but it's like it's not quite the same. So it's like, okay, so, but maybe it's just that you're not getting enough exercise. Maybe it's just because you're not on the right medication. Maybe this thing that you're going through is going to pass. Maybe this. You can't do that with cancer. You have it. You're gonna die. But this other stuff, and so therein lies this gray area of, well, but we can't treat it the same way and say, okay, thumbs up for this MAID or other acronym that lets you die. That's just one way to look at it, I think, because it's like, so at the end of the day, I think we're just going to have a lot of people who are just going to continue to suffer alone, and some of them are going to try, and some of them will die, and some of them won't. And
I mean, you could argue that it's inhumane in itself because, you know, all these people that try to kill themselves usually fail and just end up really fucking themselves up and being in a lot of pain.
high percentage, right? Right.
Yeah, and so many people like this. Part of my story is that because of my suicide attempts, I've been completely exiled from my family. Like I pretty much am alone all the time. I have a handful of friends who I'm not super honest with about the situation, but as far as my family goes, I've been pretty much exiled.
Yeah.
And I bet that's quite common. I mean, right? I bet that's pretty common.
I have the same problem, Carrie.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So you're just literally creating a culture of more and more people
Not feeling good, not feeling better.
alone, and then they're heading down to that suicidal path anyway. Mostly, sure, some of them are going to tough it out. Shitty life. Like, what are we doing?
And be suffering the whole time.
All the time. And then probably mostly, truly, honestly, being blamed for it. Like you should. That's the narrative usually, right? You should have gone to another doctor.
How could
you should have tried another
this?
medication?
Yeah.
You should have done this. You should have done that, or not.
What do you guys think about the idea of that there's certain members of society that become scapegoats for, the negativity, that there's sort of like people that become almost like a placeholder for the dysfunction people don't want to look at?
I haven't really thought about that much.
What about you, Sarah? Have you ever thought about that idea?
Like, can you tell me more about that? Like, for example, would be a person on welfare, or a homeless person, or a person with mental illness, or a...
Well, I've been looking a lot into, I'm just going to say words, and, just remember that words are just kind of all we have to describe things that are hard to describe. So I've been looking a lot at narcissistic systems, the way they work, that we sort of have this like dysfunctional society, and that certain people gravitate toward, like in their survival mechanisms, they gravitate toward narcissism. And then those narcissists become sort of the more powerful, vocal members of society, and they need scapegoats, or they need to almost like delineate the other people that they're going to trying to describe. I'm just going to say it right out as the way I've experienced it, because I'm trying to say it in a more analytical way. But like in my particular situation, my mom behaved very narcissistically as a result of her own trauma coming from narcissistic family systems with addiction issues and things like that. And then she had me and my sister, and my sister was really like, she's really academically proficient. She was an athlete. She was a model, very attractive, beautiful. And I was born with a genetic condition that caused me to be less so. Like I struggled with life. I'm really, really sensitive. I'm not like physically strong. And so what ended up happening in my family system is my sister was sort of like the golden child, and she was really celebrated. And I became this stand-in for the scapegoat. And I absorbed a lot of the BS that went on between my parents, the financial dysfunction, just all the dysfunction I sort of took on and embodied, and then became saddled with both mental health and physical health conditions. And I just sort of, I look at the situation now from a higher level, like why, and you see it happen. It's pretty textbook, and you see it happen throughout society. And if you listen to any information about narcissistic systems and family systems, it seems to be really evident that there's these golden child and scapegoat personas that get taken on in family systems. It's so
Family dynamics.
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
I'm the
strange to
troublemaker
me.
in the family. I'm the one that always
Right. I'm the loser.
points out the elephant in the room, and then, oh, she's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
The black sheep.
Yeah.
But are you saying that that's also happening on a larger sort of macro scale in our culture, where there's sort of have-nots, power, non-power, those that get the
100%.
voice, those that don't get the
Failures.
voice, those that get the mic, those that don't get the mic, those that are believed, those that are not believed. Right.
Yeah, and we can see it play out at every level
Yeah.
of, say, like government and society. You see this play out where these narcissistic figureheads, not to mention any names, but these narcissistic figureheads then appoint how people are going to show up in
Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
Language we were encouraged or discouraged to use, or sometimes not allowed to use. It sounds all so conspiratorial, but I don't think it is. And of course, anybody watching this would be like, "Well, they're just crazy. This is what crazy people, you know." And so that's the whole point, is that the people
Yeah.
that start talking about it, even logically. Hey, Ash, can you mix your background noise?
Yep.
Thanks.
Hey,
You know,
Ash.
it's a hard and tiring and exhausting thing to continue to do, because you find a tribe, right? Like you four right now, we're like mostly on the same page with this, so it's an easy conversation and a welcome conversation. But let's see what happens when we try to have that with even just the next layer. Now, I don't even mean everybody. I mean the next ones who are maybe on board, and then you go out or more like, and then more and more. It's like, well, but isn't that the fight for anybody who's sort of in the powerless?
Yeah, I think that might be part of, well, I see that as part of my mission in this lifetime is that I've just come into a place of clarity about the fact that I am a black sheep, scapegoat, whatever, and then I have to learn how to manage. Like another word I use is a truth seer, and when you're a truth seer, the people that are living in the lie don't want you to have a voice, right? So they're going to find ways to silence you. They're going to call you mentally ill and find all these pathologies to saddle you with. They're going to want to medicate you to silence your voice. I mean, there's 100 ways. Those of us that are truth seers and truth tellers are going to get silenced. Part of our job is to not be silent.
Yeah.
No matter what those people
and,
say.
And it gets tricky though, because there are some people, and this is shaky ground here a little bit, but like there are some people who really are out there, where the stuff they're saying actually may not make any sense. There are some people that maybe like legitimately need to be medicated. So, and the reason I point that out is if nobody were, then it becomes like you're just being a bully by saying I need to be medicated. But because there are some people that maybe do need that or benefited, then it's like, oh, well, maybe you're just one of them, Carrie, Sarah. Maybe you're just like them. You know, I don't know if that made any sense, but it's just like, because it's.
I have a question though for you guys. What if the crazy people are not, I mean, maybe they're crazy because we're trying to fit them into this small definition of sanity.
For sure.
What if the crazy people are the truth tellers and the
or at least
I don't know.
At least the truth tellers, or at least the truth considerers. But Carrie, how many people will hear what you just said and be like, she's a nut job.
I know. Because I'm one of the crazy people.
Right. So of course, crazy people want to think they're special, so they'll say that about themselves and others who are crazy, and so it goes in this weird, like, and also not everybody who's in that, like me and you, we're really different. Even though we agree on that, So it doesn't mean everybody's in that category, all agree on all of this. There's still a lot of differences. But I read something about ADHD, and this is probably a terrible example. And it wasn't to suggest that ADHD at all doesn't exist, but it was more, and you might have seen this because it was probably something that went viral or whatever online, but it was more like, yeah, but maybe some people don't need to be like, I'm going to butcher this, put in rows in a small room for the first 12 years of their life being told what to do, and then XYZ and more of that, and stuck behind a desk for 10 hours. They're like, maybe some of it's that, but industrialized or whatever. Like maybe some of it is, but then those people would say, well, you're not adapting. And because you're not adapting to that, that's a sign of Darwinian weakness. But then there's a suggestion with that what you're asked to be adapted to is this like ideal, which by no means is true. It just happens to be what is now happening. But it is not necessarily better than or more developed than other systems. It's just we're the ones in part that are like not thriving in it. Does that make sense? I know people who are thriving in that with a home and a family and a bank account and vacations, and forget happiness or not, but like, why would they really give a lot of thought to a system in which, yes, they've worked hard, I'm not taking anything away from them, but that they are clearly benefiting from? And why would they then not in part look down to perhaps others who question that? Yeah, right? So where does that conversation even fucking go?
Well,
it's just take your meds and shut up.
I would argue that any psychological or psychiatric pathology is just a name to compare the way somebody fits into the industrial complex. So like ADHD is a great example that you just gave. Is ADHD compared to what? Mm-hmm. Like maybe this person is meant to be climbing mountains and not meant to be because the classroom that you're describing that we're all meant to, by law go to is set up to train people to be part of the industrial complex. Yeah. It's not for the benefit of the human condition. Right. It's for the benefit of the capitalistic condition.
It's certainly rarely meant, and perhaps this is changing, but probably in very expensive private schools, to nourish the soul. There are other things happening at that school socially that are helpful. Like there's not just indoctrination, but sure. I mean, yeah. What if you're meant to just be I don't know, maybe then other people would be like, dude, all of that's just a luxury anyway, when you're meant to climb a mountain. Reality is you're meant to hunt a fucking bison. Mm-hmm. Everything else is just a luxury. I don't know. Am I meant to have a conversation on a computer? Is that my thing? Is that what I'm meant to do? A podcast? What would I be doing 20 years ago before podcasts exists? I don't even remember what I was doing. I was alive, but I don't even fucking remember. But you know what I mean?
You'd probably be hosting these situations in a a live setting. Because it does seem to be your mission, and I, for one, really appreciate it because it's hard to be out here thinking differently and having nobody to talk to about it.
I remember having a conversation, and by the way, Ash, I want to say hi and ask your thoughts if you want to about physician-assisted suicide in a moment, and I just don't want to forget this thought, and then I'll, of course, the mic is yours. Here's a little example. My sister, cool person, supportive, loving, good family, successful in most ways, did very well in publishing. It's going to sound like a weird example, but I remember, this is in terms of like fitting into a system that may or may not benefit you. I remember her saying, she was in like more of a junior level, probably in her 20s, and she had a plan. And our plan was like, within 5 years, she was married pretty early, but it wasn't less about marriage, but it was more like, well, in 5 years, I'd like to be in sort of a middle management role. In 10 years, ideally, if things work out, whether it's at this company or another company, I think I'm in a senior leadership position. And then here are the steps to get there. I'm like, how the fuck does your brain work? I don't understand how your brain works. And she did it.
Yay
Do you
for
know what
her.
I'm saying? She did it. She did it. Like, so I believe our culture benefits that in large part. Like, you benefit a lot if you can do that, for better or worse. I'm not judging it. My brain, in a way I will never be able to articulate clearly, is just simply not designed that way. It never will be. And I know it's not because I'm not taking a certain medication, or I lack some. I know it's just that I just am not that way.
Yeah.
I'm just not that way. And I know that's so that's like a one little example, but you multiply that by a gazillion other examples. And you're like, all right, now I'm 50 and you're this and I'm here. And I'm like, it's just weird. Anyway, hi, Ash.
Hi.
What's up?
The sky.
There's always one. So any thoughts? No pressure. The question about how you feel about physician-assisted suicide, and that the term we're kind of agreeing upon using, it seems to be the common term. And then you're in the United States, right?
Yes. I think it should be legal, honestly. Who's to tell me what I can and can't do with my body?
Well, you can kill
And
yourself, Ash.
well, yeah, exactly. But if I want to have the assistance of a doctor to
Yeah.
make it more comfortable, why can't I have that right?
Yeah.
All right. Let me push back. Ready? Well, not push back. Well, then, that means another person's deciding if you are, well, maybe eligible, unless the doctor doesn't have that say, and all their role is simply to administer based on what you want. If that's the case, okay. But then I wonder, and I know there's probably no real answer here, but more just questions begetting questions. Do we want to, quote, prevent people from doing something? I have to use the I word here, impulsive. Let's say we could have a world in which somehow a year after you've ended your life, we could talk to you and see if you regret it, right? We don't want people to end their lives and then a year later be like, from another dimension, man, that was a mistake. I was just having a really rough stretch. We're never going to get that perfect, but do we want to try to, quote, mitigate that? And then how do we do that? Or maybe that's just part of it, and that's just part of the risk you take. And once in a while, somebody's going to do it and wish they hadn't, and oh well. I mean,
But also look at it from the suicide point of view. Without a physician, is a lot of it's impulsive that way. If we could go ask them the same question, do you regret it? Yeah, it's I understand, like, there's moral obligations there, and I see it.
The thing, and we're getting into these language things again, these words where as of present day, as much as I understand, doctors take this oath to, quote, do no harm, right? So let's say they agree to that and they're trying as best they can to live that way or work that way. Like, well, what does that mean though? Because on the surface, it would say, if I'm assisting suicide in any way, I'm harming. But could you not also make the argument that by not helping someone who's suffering, and I can tell everybody here has been on, actually, I can't speak for everybody here because not everybody's been on the podcast, but a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure people who are here right now have been suffering for a long time. Where does the harm come in? At what point are you doing more harm than less?
Yeah.
And then that becomes an impossible thing to measure, which we're obsessed with as well. Pink and
You
purple
can also
pen?
look at it from harm. What is harm? Is surgery considered harm?
So it's like you do harm to maybe you do some harm to potentially do good.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do some harm to do more good, hopefully, than more harm. But because suicide is arguably probably permanent, it's a tricky little animal on its own little island in a way. Like if there were a pink and purple pill, right? Even then there are questions like, like imagine that was a thing. Like, do I have an infinite number of them? What if I didn't? Who gets them? Who doesn't get them? Does it have an expiration date? Can you do, or there's always going to be these questions when it comes to the choice of ending your life.
Yeah. I feel like we're inching toward physician assisted, don't you think? Like if you look over time, over the last few hundred years, how it's gone from like this unspoken taboo. Well, even like my grandfather taking his own life was in 1940, I think, around there. It was right in the middle of the Second World War. He took his own life, and my dad didn't find out until he was in his 30s how his father had died. They lied to him. They told him all these different stories. He died of the Spanish flu. He died of all these different things. And then it was somebody else, a family friend, who actually told him the whole story. So that's not very long ago. Like that's within the last 100 years that the family couldn't even speak of it. And now it's much more common thing to talk about. And now we even have, in some countries, we have physician assisted. So the trajectory is that we're going to be able to talk about it more, and it's going to be more of a commonality.
Well, and in some states too, but it's not always like, how history is. It's not just like this linear straight thing going up. It kind of loops back and loops back. It's not always. I haven't done enough research on this. Love some help with this, but we've only documented so much because at some point there was no printing press and there was no way to know what people were doing or thinking. But we don't know what was going on 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago with suicide. We don't know how often it was happening, how it was dealt with. Maybe it was with honor. Maybe it was with care. Maybe a community gathered around somebody and helped them feel better as they took their last breath. Certainly, I mean, in one particular example, I know Japan has had in some ways historically a very different perspective on it. So I don't think, it's not this one thing at all in terms of just the larger human experience, starting with, I suppose, Homo sapiens, though I don't know much about the Neanderthals, though I was listening to something about that last night. But here we are, right? So it makes sense that we're talking mostly about modern day, mostly Westernish culture. But it takes a long time, years and years for some of this shit to get finally through and even discussed and maybe started. I remember reading something from 15 years ago that one state was starting to move in that direction, but it's still stalled. And, it's like, okay, maybe that's just how government tends to work, particularly in large countries. I don't know. But then the other question is this a government or public issue? Is this a public health issue or something different?
It seems like it would definitely be a public health issue.
You ever see the things that people talk about, what prevention really is? People talk prevention like call 988 or take the knives out of the kitchen, but it's like public, suicide prevention is housing. Suicide prevention is good healthcare. Suicide prevention is good water. Suicide prevention is community,
Totally. Mm-hmm.
We're more, I read this other thing and I'm going to get this and send it to you. We're a culture that does very good with, I'm going to butcher it again. And we're live, so don't do that. You got to get your shit together, Sean. Be prepared. I'll find it because it was so interesting and it was so neatly, poetically said. But it was just something more about, we're really good at like crisis compassion, but not like long-term empathy or something like that. Like when it's the longer term stuff, we suck at it, but like in the mid-moment crisis, we're like all about stepping in, right? But it's like often too late.
Yeah, that's totally true. And that's, I think, because suicide is under the umbrella of medical, and our westernized medical system is set up for acute conditions, not chronic.
Yeah. Right.
So anybody with any kind of chronic condition, like say fibromyalgia or anything that's sort of seen as this mysterious chronic condition, there's very little science dedicated to the study of those things. And all the financials go toward acute conditions.
Yeah. Acute, chronic, quick. A lot of the narratives around it and I'm seeing it through a certain lens, admittedly, but it's very much like crisis situation, call 988. Get yourself some help. Get the gun away from him. Okay. There's a place for that. That's a real thing. 90% of the conversations or the narratives or even the policies around that, most of it's not around what's actually affecting way more people, which is kind of what you described, which is the majority of the people that I tend to attract for my podcast. I do attract people who are about to kill themselves, and somehow super chronic. But by that point, I think most people don't even want to talk about it. They're done, right? They're game on at this point. You know, I'm not here to talk about some shit with a random fucking dude in North Carolina. It's over. Sometimes. I've had some, and you may know, there's a few people. I think I brought it up on recent episodes where, you know, they ended their lives. Really? And one in particular, I was actually worried because I was expecting her. I got 5 or so emails. It's public. It's fine. It's Sherry in Washington. Her podcast is out several months ago. She's no longer alive. And I was like, I got like 5 within a day. I got 5, and I didn't open them right away. Emails from friends. And I could see in the subject line, just wanted to let you know, or Sherry in Washington, or da-da-da-da-da. And I thought I was going to get fucking lambasted. And none of them did. I was like, oh, thank God. And I don't know, what if I had been criticized or something? I don't know how I would have handled it. But they were all supportive. They said she really just wanted to talk about it, and you let her talk about it. So thank you. And I was like, of course. You're welcome. You know? It was the only time I thought about having an episode purely with lost survivors, just because it was someone about one of my guests, because they were thinking about doing that. It ultimately didn't work out, and that's fine. But and there have been a few others that have died, and that's, you know, you talk to 300 people about suicide, and they're really serious. Like, of course, you're going to lose some of them. They're going to die. You know, so anyway, I think we went off topic, but as I tend to do. I also like the physician-assisted suicide. The word that keeps popping up that doesn't seem entirely right is the physician part. Like the assisted suicide is resonating. It's the physician part. Like maybe it's like doula-assisted suicide or something else assisted suicide, right? Like,
wouldn't that be amazing if there was a whole other system, like you said a little bit earlier, if there was a whole other system developed that was away from doctors for this? God, that would be such a great.
Yeah, right.
Because that system could include all the layers that lead up to the assistance to pass. You know, like it's a whole other thing that should exist outside of the current medical model. Mm-hmm. That would be so cool. I love that idea of doula assisted.
Well.
I mean, I think of the word hospice when you say that. It's not exactly hospice, but similar maybe.
But it's care and it's humane. And it's also acceptance. Like, because man, like basic conversation when somebody says something like, improv, yes, and improv basics.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's fictionalized often, but you say something, I may not like that you're doing the thing, but I accept your truth or your reality. You just said it to me. If you want to be a good team player in improv, typically you yes and them, not literally with those words always, but the idea that Sarah just said, I'm thinking of taking my life, I'm agreeing with the idea that she just said that. That's a truth for her. We're not doing that very often, or if we are, we're no-butting them so hard that we might as well be saying, I'm not accepting that. I'm like, but so then where's the middle ground here? Where there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
I just said this and you're saying no.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't do that in almost any conversation with somebody, or if that happens with anything, you'd be like, I'm having a bad day. No, you're not. Okay, bye. That's not what just happened is, words came out of your mouth, but we can't consider that conversation. I'm 5'9". No, you're not. No, I am. What the fuck are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm exceptionally handsome. No, you're not. No, but I am. Levity. Come on. Ash liked that one. Thanks, Ash. She's my biggest fan. She laughs at all my shit. Just had her on an update episode, by the way. Oh, Ash, just had an update episode. Check it out. Came out in the last week or two.
Yeah.
Ash, you okay with my little symbol that I gave you? Did you see it?
I did.
Yeah. I'm doing symbols also just for the updates. I think yours was a sun, right? I think yours was a sun. Carrie, maybe we do an update one day. It's been a while, though.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll do some sort of Canadian maple leaf for you or something. No, I can't do the Canadian flag because that's what I do for internationals. But I may do like syrup.
Maple leaf.
You do artist stuff. We'll have to find some cool like
Icons.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Ash is fire. That's what it was. Ash was
fire. I love it.
Yeah, that goes with your name too.
Yeah. That's the stuff I like as much as the conversations. Like, what's the cool little emoji that fits?
What's your title? Ash? Is it Ash from somewhere? The title.
Ash from California.
California. Okay.
Ash, but that's the original episode. The update just says Survivor update number whatever Ash and then fire. Don't ask me if there's any reasons why I do that. I just it's random. It's not random. It's thought out. But. So yours would be Survivor update number whatever, Carrie, and then some emoji. Maybe we'll do glasses. Those cool glasses. That's kind of funky and cool.
I think BC has a flag. We could try to find a BC flag.
No, flags are already. Oh, a specific state flag. Yeah, but I don't know if that would be on
an emoji.
Yeah. We have to get creative with creating an emoji for your state or provincial flag.
I have a question for you three. Have any of you ever considered trying to relocate to a place that has MAID?
No.
Oh, I mean, it would be nice, but I'm dissuaded by how difficult it is to, for example, get Canadian citizenship or residency. But I would definitely consider if I thought it was possible, Of course, anything's possible, but
as far as I know, the only place, if you don't have a physical terminal illness, the only place in the world is Holland.
What?
I think, as far as I know, but I'll look into that.
This is what I want. Carrie, you're in the group, the research group, right?
I don't think I am, but I could join it.
I would love research on what's happening in other countries, both now with respect to how it works. And I'm, for a larger thing, like historically, like we were bringing up, what was it like 500 years ago in Hawaii? I don't know if there's any data. It's so fascinating to me. We didn't always treat it this way. This isn't like an absolute. It's just a period in time. And in truth, one in which is being dominated by a certain medical model, pharmaceutical companies, industry. That is a big part of it. You cannot tell me that's not influencing. Why somebody gets let out of a hospital when their insurance runs out and they're not better? Come on. Well, what's dictating health in large part, clearly, is these things. And I don't have a solution. I'm not saying I have some miraculous better way to make it all happen, but if it's faltering so badly and so humanely, it's worth discussing.
The hospital situation is such a joke. I've been hospitalized, I think, 3 or 4 times for like, had my rights taken away and been hospitalized against my will because I went for help.
Yeah.
Naively went for help.
Right.
And, they ask you the questions and then they say, do you have a plan? And if you have any semblance of a plan, you're immediately sort of like ushered out of the doctor's office into custody. I've had that happen to me many times. And I find it such a hilarious joke once you get into the system, the way you're treated. And then they have to let you go with, like in my case, it was sort of inside of a week timeline. I can't remember how many days, but no longer than a week was I held each time. And I'm like, well, what changed? Like nothing changed.
It's so bizarre. It's like
I've been released after 4 or 5 days after this violent traumatized, like the PTSD is real, completely traumatized by being taken away and in a couple times literally in a cop car.
Right.
And I am like the
you've been
weakest.
Traumatized. You've been made worse by the experience, right?
Completely traumatized and made worse. Now developed new conditions because of this experience, and then they let you go.
And Carrie, you know what? This is an example, perfect example. By the way, when you say plan, were you talking a day or two, or a plan like even if it was 10 years from now?
Well, all the times I was asked that question, just being this sort of like compliant, obedient person that I am, or that I used to be, I would say, well, yeah, I mean, I've thought of this or I've thought of that. And then that's enough, right? Like it's not even, yes, I'm going to walk out on the street tomorrow, and do this. I'm not going to go do this thing right now, but I have thoughts of ways, and they consider that a plan. And so then you get shackled and have all your rights taken away.
If I were to, there have been so many times, and I'm moving in this direction where like I wanted to do some I would call them PSAs, but most others wouldn't. Where it's like, okay, so you say call 988 or this or then. You've heard this on the podcast, but you don't know how many people aren't talking. And I don't just mean about the fact that they might be suicidal and moving in that direction. Like a perfect example is somebody who had a terrible experience in a hospital. Most of the time, you just say, go to the hospital. And it's implied that that's probably a better place for you. I can't possibly know how many of those experiences are mostly good or mostly not good. My guess skewed towards not good for obvious reasons. But I will tell you this, people who have good experiences are far more likely to talk and be heard than those that don't. So you have no idea how many shitty experiences and traumatic experiences are happening in hospitals. Because if you, Carrie, didn't have this particular platform right now, when was the last time you talked openly about that?
I've never, ever talked about it.
Exactly. And this is not to take any away from your unique experience. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds, truly. But they're never going to fucking talk about it. So all you're going to hear, because you talked earlier about, I don't know where it's power or who has the microphone, who has the stage, are these big organizations, often suicide prevention, suicide awareness, and they do some good, but they're setting it. And here's what you hear, but you don't hear all that other stuff. Why would you? But that's a truth, and it's not a 1% truth. And it's horrible because you've got people that are trusting that and often getting traumatized. Yeah. And I don't see a lot of Facebook posts by those organizations saying, "Oh, by the way, but once in a while." I bet they might be out there, but the only time I've ever seen anything like that are like a random post here, a random comment there. Nobody who has like real, at least say like online weight or audience. You see it in the comments if you start digging enough, maybe in Reddit. I try to stay away from them. It's out there, but like, it can't compete. It can't compete. And then, of course, what happens then, the bigger issue is then what happens then is, oh, okay, right, now what? Now what do we do? And that's the problem. There's nothing that they're going to do. Are they going to build 1,000 more hospitals with 10,000 more beds and train people in a way that's humane? No. Why the fuck are there? What? When I went to the hospital, this is going to sound crazy, I know, but when I went to the hospital and they took me to the ER, I'm like, why is there an ER? There's not enough beds. I'm like, why don't you build more beds? Like, it's not as if they had 1,000 beds and like they had like 25 beds. I'm like, you're serving a big population. Why don't you build some more beds?
If there's that much need, yeah.
I just had a conversation with a woman in Kansas this week, and she's on a cot in the hall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Been there.
Well, why do you want a cot in a hall?
Talk about PTSD. Holy crap.
Right. And then if she said I was traumatized from that, then the gaslighting comes in and all the other bullshit, or you should just be appreciative of that you had a hospital and that your insurance covered some of it. It's like, in what other industry or world would we be okay with that? My God. Your French fries are fucking 10 seconds too late at McDonald's and you get 38 negative Yelp reviews.
And then that opens the conversation of the way people talk about people calling out for help and the way they talk about people who have been successful in their attempt. It's always the like, oh, you're attention seeking, you're this, you're that, you're basically exiled, you're a reject. But if you succeed, oh, what a tragedy. It's like, oh, that they were such a wonderful person and they were suffering and da 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 da, and like this, that drives me crazy. Why didn't we know?
Right. We didn't see the signs.
We didn't see the signs. Why didn't they tell me? I'd rather you call me in the middle of the night than I find out in the morning that you're gone or whatever. I mean, come on.
Right. How insulting. Deanna, who's sometimes been on these and listens to the podcast a lot. Yeah, I forget. She, one of her big frustrations is just like, yeah, it sucks that you clearly don't give a shit, but it would be actually better for me if you just were honest about it. Yeah. Stop the pretending. It's insulting. It makes it worse.
Yeah, it's insulting for sure.
Yeah, like you're not getting credit. You're not getting credit just for saying that. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, maybe you are getting credit in some people's eyes, but it's just like, So our takeaway today is nothing's going to change. But talking about it may help a little bit, even for a moment, which is not nothing.
Doesn't it seem like it's generally moving in the direction of getting better with some ups and downs in the process?
Yeah, maybe.
Slowly. Yeah.
But I think I have strong opinions about it. I think until you let people, until there's an acceptance that people can, if they want to, do this, then it won't ever change too much. Just my take on it. Essentially, giving people autonomy will end up saving lives.
Yeah.
I can't prove that. Of course, it might be the exact opposite. But giving them agency in a perhaps non-intuitive way or counterintuitive way will actually help more than it does not. But God forbid we lose one person from that policy. It's like, yeah, but how many are you saving, or helping, or even just letting them feel a little better?
I think that's the thing, Sean, is it's so much about making people feel better while we're here, because like you said right at the outset of our conversation, that um, everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
I love, I think it's Deepak Chopra says, life is a suicide mission.
No, he stole that from me. I'm just kidding.
So the issue is not if someone's going to die or how they're going to die or any of those kinds of things. It's how are we going to live?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
if people feel more safe and empowered to talk about their inner experience,
Mm.
that's so much of a better life than.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Who was that other big philosopher who just said the only real question in life is suicide?
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't heard that before.
Oh, he's big. Well, the only, I'm paraphrasing a tiny bit, but it was short and sweet.
Is it a contemporary or someone?
Oh, no. He's way dead.
Like
And wait, and you've heard of, yeah, Sartre probably. Something
What was
like
it again? The only real question in life is
that. Well,
suicide?
just Google it right now, Sartre. I'll do it.
Sartre.
I don't know how to spell it. Don't know how to say it.
Satre.
Satre. Only me, and I may be a butcher. Only real question. The only real question. Let's see. The only real question in Sartre's existentialism is not a single, easily answered question, but rather, oh Jesus, I fucked that up. Maybe it's not Sartre.
Socrates, maybe.
Maybe, or Camus. I don't know. So please don't send me an email saying I don't know my philosophy. I'm sorry. There was a really big philosopher whose main question in life was simply about self-death, suicide.
I like that.
Or as TikTok would say, and I'm sure the old philosophers would agree, unaliving yourself. I'm sure they love that. Yeah. The poetry of that word they would embrace, I'm sure.
How many people hate what social media is doing to our language? Ugh, things like that, unaliving. There's all these stupid words people are using to work around the algorithm that are ultimately going to change our language, and it's just so nutty.
That's how language is. It's moving. It's dynamic. It is maybe happening faster than it would typically, I guess, right?
A cool series for these lives could be people's experience in behind the scenes, like in hospitals and stuff like that. That could be a really cool conversation series.
I would love to make an entire playlist just for that. I would love one of you all to run it. Ooh, Carrie, how about you?
I can do that.
I don't want to do everything.
Oh, I'd love to try hosting.
If anybody in my community wants to run a series like that, they're welcome to. We could co-host. You could host.
Cool idea.
That's how you make it a little bigger, right? That's how you make it a little, more inclusive, I guess, and more something. I want to co-host once in a while for the podcast. I want to try that out. I don't know how that would look. I'd have to get my guests okay with it, but try it out.
I like that idea.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be a little clunky at first, but that might, who knows?
That is such a huge, amazing idea, because would Sarah and Ash agree that part of living the way we live, this condition, whatever you want to call it, is that we all share that element of being silenced?
Yeah.
And using your voice is like literally life-changing.
And not only using it in like a more or less responsive way, but like more proactive. And I think one way to do that, and it's not everybody's skill set or interest, but it's like, all right, you run it. You facilitate the conversation. You make it, you get to go where you want it to go, or field the questions, or, I've said this before. I think I'm pretty good at the one-on-ones. I'm figuring it out. It's not my super strength, but I talk too much. But my lighting is bad. My ears are too big. I mean, leave me alone. But I want more people to be involved in that way. I really do. especially in the live streams, I think more than the podcast. Podcast is kind of its own thing, play around with it a little bit. But we'll see. I'll put that question in there for anyone who's wondering and seeing this. There's a WhatsApp group for my guests. Some of them have joined. I'll put that in there. Who wants the co-host? The only problem with that, of course, is if I get a co-host who's like, then what do we do? All right, you had your one shot. Now I don't want to make things worse in your life, but never again. It's a risk you take, I guess, right? Any other thoughts on the original idea on physician assisted? PAS.
I'm just a big green check mark. Yes, let's move forward with that. And take away some of the red tape around it. Like in Canada, there's huge red tape around it. Like it's really hard to qualify.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, it's just in Holland, or I guess they call it the Netherlands. That's the only place that's for mental illness. That's what you want to call it.
I thought you said Poland before. That's why I was a little surprised.
No, Holland.
I've heard of Holland, and then I know Switzerland and Belgium have some progressive things. By the way, if you really want to do some good work, get rid of the red tape, make it pink and purple. Boom. Then shit changes. It's the color. Red is a problem. Pink and purple, not a problem. There was one other thought I had, but I'm forgetting it. Oh, tomorrow. Hey, listen, and this is to you and anyone listening ever, but it might be too late by the time they see this. But tomorrow, we've got a cool episode with a woman named Claire. I'll give it away. Sometimes I know it's a huge surprise, but Claire lives in Australia. It's a nice episode. And if you're hearing this and you ever want to be a guest, just email me at hello@suicidenoted.com. It's pretty straightforward. I'd love to talk. There's no qualification. You don't have to send me your story. You're a suicide attempt survivor or chronic ideator, and you're open to talking, and you're in. That's it. There's nothing else you need to share with me other than getting the process started, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Also, if you're rich, send me $10,000. Okay, bye. Need money. Got a lot of good ideas. Got a lot of good people involved. Short on one big thing, and in this country, it's green. Actually, in the country I'm in now, it's not, but the country I reside in, it's green.
Are you still doing your membership?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks to my members out there. It's just, modest, but great. Appreciate it.
I'll look into it.
Could use 12,000 more members by the end of the month, but you don't know what I mean? But the ones I have, I love. Love.
Maybe GoFundMe.
Maybe you go fund you. There's GoFundMe. There's a few different big platforms, right? But yeah, I'm not trying to push back. I'm just a little bit. The people want to fund these conversations. They're scared of them. If anything, they would probably want me to pay them to have the conversation. They're so scared. You want me to hear this for an hour? Give me $50. Sure.
Yeah, there should be a way that's, I just feel like this work is so important. There should be a way to have you earn a living, because I think it's one of the most important conversations that needs to be had, and you're facilitating it.
He's trying, third person, from your lips to certain human beings with exceptional wealth and perhaps big hearts. And I'm fiscally sponsored. You could write it off those taxes, baby. You won't even feel it. You won't even feel it.
Is that true? Like, you mean you're a society? Like, you give people tax receipts?
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how it works, but the organization that I'm fiscally sponsored through does that work. But they take a little bit of it. Their model is they take a little small percentage of it all. That's how they make money, to do all the administrative work. And they themselves are a 501c3 nonprofit, which means I don't have to go through all that to be my own.
Oh, okay.
So once they accept you into that, it's called a fiscal sponsorship. Then you can get grants, and then you can accept donations, and those people. And I don't know how it works. You consult with your accountant, but yeah, you can write it off, and that's an incentive. So let's make it happen.
Good to know.
I mean, even in Mexico, quick, boom, peso, dollar, easy, boom, boom. 2025, this shit happens fast. Just gotta, and I know exactly what I would use it for.
Yeah, we need a grant writer.
If it's a grant writer or a person who just knows really rich people, I'd rather them just be like a rich person ringer. Hey, Bob. Hey, Diane. Oh, I caught you out at the pool out by the ocean, sipping on that margarita. Hey, real quick, take off your diamond shoes for a second. That's the people I need to be talking to.
I have to peace out.
Me too.
Thanks for the conversation. Nice to meet you guys. People. Sorry, not good at pronouns. Nice to meet you, people.
See you, people. We'll talk soon. Thanks for the convo, y'all.
Yeah, lots of love.
Bye,
Ciao.
everybody.
Be good. Bye. Have a good day.